Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today, we're asking which of his loyal brothers would Lion L. Johnson choose to return. No real need for a spoiler warning today, so let's waste no time and just jump straight in. Okay, so with the return of Lion L. Johnson to the 40k galaxy, it really feels like it's just a matter of time until the rest of the loyal Primarchs return as well. When it was only Leman, I was a little doubtful we'd ever actually see the others return, but now that L. Johnson has, for me it is surely now a certainty. The floodgates have been opened, and though we're still waiting on L. Johnson's real reunion with the Imperium and Jaghatai, I thought it would be quite interesting to have a debate on which loyal brother he would want to return next. We've discussed it a lot for Leman over the years, but not so much the Lion. And well, who would he? Obviously the immediate answer would be Sanguinius, one of the few brothers L. Johnson openly liked, even lamenting why couldn't it have been Leman who died in the Angel's place. But of course the Angel isn't possible. He is gone, and so is Ferrus Manus. And so our choices are Rogal Dorn, Jaghatai Khan, Vulkan, Corvus Corax, and the Wolf King Leman Russ. Most of L. Johnson's opinions of these Primarchs are unknown, as are his relationships with them, and the few we have seen haven't been particularly good, as is the standard for the Lion. Of course, he's returned to a galaxy in turmoil now, his father's empire a mess. He would be happy to see any brother returned. But if you think those feelings of old don't remain within, wouldn't come creeping back after a while to one extent or another, well then, I'm afraid we'll have to disagree. No Primarch can change their nature, as we're seeing with Leman now. L. Johnson doesn't want to make the same mistakes, but he is still very much the same Lion. And so it's tricky here. I think he would see the huge benefits to having Rogal Dorn back, appreciating his brother's strategic talent. But we've seen them really clash heads in the past as well, back during the time of the Great Crusade. And the Lion doesn't forget things like that. And I may be wrong, but in his grief, I wouldn't be surprised to see Rogal make some form of comment or accusation in the Scouring at his brothers who were not at the siege, who did not arrive in time. And that won't help anything in terms of their relationship. And so for all Rogal's ability, I don't think L. Johnson would necessarily choose him to return first. As much as he might respect him, their relationship wasn't particularly good, and he'd probably see Rogal as very similar to Jaghatai, bearing in mind L. Johnson misses most of the Scouring drama, returning to Caliban right away after the Throne World. Unless we get a retcon, of course. However, at this time, I can't say Rogal is a contender. Now, L. Johnson's clash with Leman Russ is another well-known difficult relationship, the two brawling in Dewland being legendary, their natures like chalk and cheese. However, there's some developments that make Russ a distinct and maybe surprising possibility for me. Firstly, L. Johnson witnessed the Wolfen and chose to keep it secret, never mentioning it to anyone else, which is a sure sign of trust in Russ's loyalty and grudging respect. Secondly, the fight on Dewland was for decades in the real world the law that was said to be the beginning of their firm friendship. which was even referenced by Lorgar early in the Heresy series, in the novel Thousand Suns. Though it was retconned a bit, we eventually saw the bad blood put aside in Russ's Primarch novel, where he lets El Johnson stab him to let out his grief and anger after the siege. And the two even fought the campaign against Barbarous previously to that, at the end of the Heresy. So it undoubtedly feels a bit messy in how it's played out, but it's clear. Eventually, we did get to the Lion and the Wolf comradeship in one way or another. And so, while they are very different, I think Russ in a way is a real brother to El Johnson, and there's a definite respect that has existed even through their worst of times. And so Russ is a contender here for me. I don't think I've ever seen anything in regards to El Johnson and the Khan. I'm looking forward to seeing the two of them hopefully interacting during the Scouring, and I actually think they'd get on okay. Both loners in their way. Of course, extremely different personalities, and the Lion may view the Scars as savages compared to his noble knights, but I think there'd be definite respect there for the Scars' talent and way of war, and especially so for Jaghatai, an equally skilled bladesman and duelist. I'm not sure they'd ever be friendly, but I don't think they'd ever have clashed either, which is about perfect for El Johnson. So I think the Khan could be a surprising choice here. Now, we've seen El Johnson reflect on mourning about Corax's apparent death in the novel The Lion, Son of the Forest. However, as I discussed last week, there is a White Dwarf article on El Johnson's campaign of vengeance that made it clear the Lion's arrival to Deliverance in the Heresy was a bit tense, to say the least, with El Johnson questioning Corax's loyalty, why he hasn't been present since Istvan, and the Raven Lord subsequently rejected joining El Johnson on his campaign. And so that would absolutely be a pretty tense encounter, and so I don't think Corax would have much love lost for the Lion, to say the least, and so I can't say he's a favourite here. And so, what of Vulkan? Well, it's another unknown relationship. I don't imagine they'd have much in common, and no particular affinity for each other. Vulkan the reluctant general, and El Johnson the uncompromising warlord. But I also don't think, or at least see, where Vulkan and El Johnson could particularly clash either. No clash of egos with Vulkan, or superficial warrior pride. Now, is it possible El Johnson may well have looked down on Vulkan for his reluctance for war? Yes, especially so in the Crusade era. But I actually think that that's maybe something he'd be a little more sympathetic to, now in the current era, with the galaxy he has returned to find, being the more straightforward protector of the people he was when he first awoke, until he learned the Imperium still lived, and he was reunited with his chapter. El Johnson could possibly look around and see a galaxy that could use a Vulkan, a more caring soul. And so I wouldn't rule Vulkan out here. But overall, who am I going to go for? Who do I think El Johnson would prefer? Well, obviously, he would welcome any loyal brother back. There's no doubt about it. In typical fashion, only realising what he had when it was gone. But I think actually, I would probably say Leman Russ. Yes, they had the toughest road and relationship, there's no doubt about it, but through that fire, was born a connection that he never quite had with the others. And in seeing how Russ spoke of him after his departure, I think a genuine respect and bond was fostered through it all. And I really don't think you can overlook L. Johnson never revealing the Wolfen curse to anyone, even when his relationship with Russ was at its worst. That speaks of a respect, despite all the words that were exchanged between the two, not to mention the blows. Like I said, I think Jaghatai could be a surprising possibility, maybe even a Vulkan. And heck, even with the grudges, he'd love to see Rogal or Corax too. But we never quite got to see the fabled brotherhood of the lion and the wolf, which was always told to come out of their argument on Julian. So hopefully, it's something we will still yet see. And so for me, I'm landing on Leman Russ as the Lion's preferred option to return. A brother whose ability and strength he respects. A brother he has fought. A brother he can speak openly with. And a brother he knows has no hidden agenda. And arguably, a brother the Lion knows the Imperium needs to turn back the tide. But as always everyone, what do you think? Which of the loyal Primarchs do you think the Lion would prefer to return? Do you agree with me that for all the difficulties on their road, it would be Leman Russ the Lion would choose? Or do you think maybe Jaghatai, or even a Rogal or Corvus Corax? As always everyone, leave your thoughts in the comments below. A huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow, and if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.